Hi, everyone, and welcome to our next episode of On the Horizon in Healthcare. My name is Dr. Beth Brooks, and I'm the clinical advisor here at Vivian Health. And today we want to talk about employee referral programs. And some of you may be thinking, we used to do that, or those have been around a long time. And I sometimes think that what's old is new again. So I do want to talk a little bit about employee referral and some of the evidence that supports this approach to doing recruitment, because really it is an approach that we know works. We have some pretty good science behind it and some recommendations around how to, if you will. So interestingly, almost every organization, the research says about 70% of US firms use an employee referral program as a way to tap into their employees' networks and bring candidates to the organization. And so one of the things we know is that when an employee is referring or recommending to their friend to come to your organization, they're probably communicating pretty honest information about your organization, what it's like to work in your organization. And in many respects, your employee is probably only talking to another friend or colleague that they think will be a good fit for your organization. So one of the benefits of employee referral programs is that your employee has in essence done some pre-screening of a candidate, has probably shared some really, significant information about your organization. And one of the benefits is that we're reaching now a passive job seeker. And you know how difficult that is. It's easy for active job seekers, I shouldn't say easy, easier to recruit someone who's actively seeking for a position. But when you're trying to reach someone that's a passive job seeker, there's no better way to do that than with an employee referral. So what are the benefits of using an employee referral? So some of these things I'm talking about, like your employee has done a pre-screening, that should save some time, right? Theoretically, in the human resources department. And I'm not suggesting that you wouldn't go ahead and do a full pre-screening of any candidate, but you have a pretty good idea that this friend of your employee has probably gotten some pretty good information. There's a pretty good chance, at least that's what the evidence says, that your employee is speaking to a colleague or a friend that they know has the skills or the personality or the talents or competencies that you're A, looking for, and B, that this friend or colleague will be a good fit for your organization. It would be silly for me to make an employee referral to someone that I didn't think A, would be a good fit for my organization, and B, was able to do the job, because that's the one drawback potentially, is if I refer someone and they're hired and then they don't perform well for whatever reason, that could reflect poorly on you. And so there's a pretty good chance that you've done a good job of only speaking to your friends or colleagues that would be a good fit for your organization and that have the right skills. And so essentially, you've been able to tap into your employees' networks and social networks. And so most of those colleagues or friends are people that your employee has worked with in the past, are people that have been successful in their prior work. And sometimes the organization may decide to also use a referral bonus and offering a monetary incentive. And the research evidence is, if you will, unequivocal. We don't know for certain if the referral bonus money necessarily motivates your employee more. But what we do know is that offering some type of employee referral bonus to your employee does in fact drive that behavior that you're looking for, which is to ask your employee to make referrals of their friends or colleagues. Some other things we know is that for the most part, your staff, your employees are pretty motivated to go out and help recruit, especially if there's a special project or a special skill set you're looking for. And so most of the employees are motivated just intrinsically that they want to help the organization, they're committed to the organization. And so they're willing to go out and speak to their colleagues and friends about working for your organization. So deciding whether or not you want to reward monetarily your employee, that's the decision that you can make as you roll out an employee referral program, but it's certainly not required. Although it makes sense that a little money would motivate your employees to provide you with more names of potential candidates. The other thing that's really terrific and is of a benefit for your organization, if you hire someone that's an employee referral, 9 times out of 10, your employee has spoken to the potential hiring manager, told them about this potential candidate. That potential candidate will hopefully move a little more quickly through the system. Their resume should float to the top of the pile. And one of the important things to always remember is to always give that true and factual information to that candidate. So the employee referral is, while you're probably going to be giving your employee is giving you the names of really qualified and potential employees that'll fit your organization, and you know that your employee isn't going to refer someone who wouldn't be a good fit. It's also just important to, of course, go through the traditional hiring process, make sure that position is posted, because you would not want to have any kind of inside employment going on or hiring candidate from a position that's not been posted. The other thing I just want to caution you about with employee referral programs is that network. Your employee has a network, and typically our networks are of like people or like colleagues, or we've worked in the same industry. We may have a network that's not terribly diverse, or we may have a network that's more experienced workers versus folks who are younger in their career. So when you're implementing an employee referral program, one of the things to keep in mind is that you may have to work a little harder to achieve your diversity goals, because each of us have colleagues in our business networks that might be too similar to us. Maybe they're women, white women, and you need to have a more diverse workforce. So you may have to encourage other groups of employees and to keep that in mind, that when you use employee referral, you may be tapping into networks of like people, and that may not necessarily help you achieve some of your diversity goals. So there's lots and lots of evidence. So let's kind of recap a little bit here. What are the outcomes that are impacted if you use an employee referral program? Theoretically, and this makes sense, it should cost less to run advertising or put on a job board because you're tapping into your own folks. Theoretically, we should have folks that are coming to your organization that are a better fit, certainly that are going to have the right skill set, and that hopefully are coming to the organization because, their colleague has referred them and they want to make a good impression, just like their colleague wants this new employee to make a good impression. And so there's some evidence, pretty compelling evidence, that talks about less turnover when you use an employee referral model as one strategy for recruitment. So between selection costs and turnover costs, and hopefully job performance and folks being more productive too, because they want to make a good impression because their friend referred them, those are all benefits that can add up over time. And so that's one of the benefits, one of the many benefits of having an employee referral program. So what's human resources role? I've done many employee referral programs in my life, and generally speaking, and this there's not so much evidence about, but some of the rules of thumb: you want to have a finite period of time for a program. Maybe it's a 6-month program, maybe it's 8 months, but you don't want to have a constant ongoing program, because it can just not be top of mind. So generally what we see, and you'll see this with employment communications, is having some kind of theme or program name, having some incentives, monetary or maybe tchotchkes, giveaways, to encourage employees to recommend names. And then perhaps there's a more lucrative reward if that person is hired, because perhaps not every name your employee might submit is not, for whatever reason, doesn't meet a criteria or is not selected. That employee has still done the behavior you've asked them, which is to make the referral. So perhaps there's another kind of reward that comes into play when that person is actually hired. You have to have buy-in, that goes without saying, from leadership. And certainly this is a little extra work for the human resources department. It's always, of course, a good idea to be measuring how many hires are coming in through employee referral, and then also keeping your eye on turnover, how long those folks stay in the organization. You've got to have that theme and different incentive programs. I've seen organizations, hospitals that have had, for every name you submit, your name goes in a raffle, and then there's a raffle for some big prize at the end. And so that really incentivizes employees to submit names. So there's all kinds of ways to create some excitement and some urgency around a program. Have some fun, give it a name, do some marketing, make sure the senior team is out talking about the program. And you also want to make sure that your employees have the right information to share. So giving them the tools they might need to help talk to other folks about your organization. So those are some of the tips and suggestions and recommendations about employee referral programs. Again, they sort of perhaps wax and wane in popularity or in time of need. I think now's not a bad time with our workforce shortage. So if you haven't, dust off your employee referral program, maybe reinvigorate that, re-implement it, and see if that doesn't help with some of your recruitment efforts. It certainly should pay off in all kinds of beneficial ways. And if you have any questions or comments or would like to see our references, please let us know and contact us at hire.vivian.com. And thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.